Live with clickorlando.com, this is News 6 at noon, getting results.
Breaking news at noon, the Artemis I mission to the moon has been postponed again. Launch director Charlie Blackwell-Thompson making the call within the past hour.
This is Artemis Launch Control. Launch director Charlie Blackwell-Thompson just called a scrub for the launch attempt today, the second launch attempt. Again, launch director Charlie Blackwell-Thompson calling a scrub for the day.
A reoccurring fuel leak during tanking operations forced NASA to scrub today's launch attempt. Good afternoon. I'm Lisa Bell. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday for News 6 at noon. Right now, mission managers have not announced a formal decision on how to proceed. We want to get right out to News 6's Eric Von Enken, who has been out at the Kennedy Space Center all morning. And Eric, the team was dealing with delays all morning.
Yeah, it just wasn't meant to happen again, Lisa, and I feel so badly for all of the people on the Space Coast right now who'd hoped that their Saturday afternoon was going to be lit up with the most powerful rocket that NASA has ever launched being sent into the sky. It did not happen. The latest information we have is, of course, the big question, what now? When are they going to try again? So 4 p.m. this afternoon, NASA has a press conference scheduled to tell us, one, what they think this problem really was all about. Two, if or how they think they can fix it. And number three, the big question, right? Do they try again on Monday or even Tuesday? Tuesday is a backup launch opportunity as well, but after that, the opportunities go away. So what was the issue? NASA just cannot get this Artemis I moon rocket fully fueled. They have tried now with 4 practice countdowns, 4 wet dress rehearsals. They never got to the end of the countdown. Remember, we had the launch attempt on Monday. They didn't get to the end of the countdown then. This time, yet another hydrogen leak, and this is tricky because hydrogen, of course, is the smallest molecule. It's very slippery. So all of these seals between the infrastructure, the mobile launcher, and the rocket itself have to be perfectly.
All right, that was News 6's Eric Von Enken. We're going to try and check back with him throughout the day. This launch, of course, though, drawing hundreds of thousands of people to the Space Coast, hoping to see the first flight. We do want to check in now with traffic safety expert Trooper Steve with the latest on the roads for us right now. I bet it's starting to build out there now, Steve.
Well, if you've got me here on a Saturday, yeah, things are rather interesting out here. So thanks, Lisa. This is going to be 528 over by Cape Canaveral. So on a normal Saturday, this is pretty much what you're seeing out there. East and westbound traffic moving pretty good. The good thing is I do believe they scrub this pretty early, 2 hours out from the window. So it gives people the opportunity to maybe change their plans, maybe have some patience out on the road, right? So close to State Road 501, I'm not tracking any issues out here when it comes to like crashes or anything that you could really avoid. So everything that you're gonna run into out here throughout Brevard County, just expect it and take it nice and easy. I'm tracking some delays right now, east and west on 528, east of Tropical Trail. So obviously the closer to Cape Canaveral. Why? Because everyone lines up here along 528 to look north at the rocket through that area. Keep in mind, rocket's not going up, right? So there is to be no stopping on any of our limited access highways unless your vehicle has some type of emergency. Sky 6 right now flying over the area, and you can start to see some pockets here and there. This is to be expected. Not everyone is in town for the Labor Day weekend, right? Some other people are in town for Artemis. So now that you're mixing this up a little bit, you're gonna have mixed traffic out there. Some people wanna hang out on the beach. Other people now trying to head home. So what are we seeing? I'm seeing eastbound delays as you approach US 1. This is just south of City Point, north of Cocoa through this area. These are the people headed towards the coast that might be turning around soon. Take it nice and easy. Now, I do want to show you a different angle from Sky 6 here, and they are cruising with us this morning. This is a beautiful shot here. There's something you also got to watch out for. Boat traffic out there this morning. So, or what time? It's 12:04, right? So noon. So boat traffic also, there's a lot of people out on the water. Just take it nice and easy this morning. Something that Titusville PD has put out and give us a warning. We're gonna take Max 3 back here. And they have issued that the Max Brewer Bridge is still closed. So all eastbound lanes are closed. You cannot head east from Titusville on this bridge. They have opened all the westbound lanes, will remain open right now so that traffic can make it inland into Brevard County. Lisa, back to you.
All right, Steve, thank you. Our team coverage continues now with News 6's Molly Reed live at Spaceview Park. Molly, another round of crowds leaving disappointed. We know some people have been camping out there all night hoping to see this launch today.
That's true, Lisa. But as Steve was just saying, that because it was scrubbed so early, a lot of people are actually sticking around, maybe kind of waiting out the traffic here at Spaceview. You can see there's still people actually hanging out, enjoying it because the weather is not too bad for how it has been. Now, again, another very disappointing day, though, here on the Space Coast. Thousands of people going home without seeing the launch. People were packed here. A lot of people getting here, camping overnight, some getting here at the break of dawn to get the best viewing spot. And when the news came in about the leak not being fixed again, you could kind of sense the shift here with everyone then sitting on the edge of their seats. Then the news of the scrub came in, and it was a mad dash to the cars to beat the traffic. So many people here drove and flew in from great distances to be here. We actually talked to a family who drove down from the Carolinas.
It was part of my bucket list. I called my sister and said, you get to South Carolina, we going to see a launch. Darn it.
And again, you can start to see the park is still slowly clearing out here. A lot of people were here to see this historic launch, but say hopefully they'll at least be able to see a launch this weekend. SpaceX does have a launch tomorrow night at 8:32 p.m. with one of their Falcon 9, so people are saying at least we'll get to see something. In Titusville, I'm Molly Reed, getting results, News 6.
Molly, thank you. News 6's James Sparvero joins us now from Kennedy Space Center. James, what's the latest from there?
Hey Lisa, before we lost Eric at the top of the hour, it sounded like he was recapping how we got to this point. And it seemed like NASA really got off on the right footing this time. You might remember back on Monday, they were delayed with starting the fueling about an hour or two because of lightning in the area. Well, the weather right now, even this morning, it was just fine for them to get started right on time, about 5 or 6 o'clock. That fuel leak with the hydrogen first reported about 7 o'clock this morning. It was the first and the only issue reported that the teams ran into. And unfortunately, after 3 or 4 hours, they couldn't resolve it. Back on Monday, they were able to resolve a fuel leak, they told us, hydrogen leak as well, and they were able to press forward. But the problem on Monday was then they ran into other issues, and then they said they just ran out of time to get everything resolved and get the rocket ready to launch in time between that 2-hour window. So they couldn't even get past that step with moving beyond a hydrogen leak this time before finishing the rest of the countdown, including fueling the upper stage of the rocket. So NASA had a lot left to do, and unfortunately for NASA, they didn't even get as far as they did, one could argue, than they did back on Monday. So as we were talking about the next steps for the SLS rocket, because there's a SpaceX launch tomorrow, NASA does not have the range, SpaceX does. So there is the opportunity, potentially, we don't know yet with what the issues may be, considerably how serious enough, but on Monday the window would open at 5:12 in the afternoon. So the Labor Day launch, as far as we know, is still on the table. And then the final opportunity to launch would be on Tuesday. And NASA told us yesterday in its final update before fueling this morning, Tuesday would be the final attempt they could get this rocket off the ground before they would have to roll back to here at the Vehicle Assembly Building, where we saw the rocket roll out a couple of weeks ago. Back then, the ground teams thought when they rolled out of the VAB, they weren't coming back, they were going to the moon. But now with our update expected at 4 this afternoon, we may in fact learn from NASA if the rocket's next destination is not in fact the moon, if it is in fact the Vehicle Assembly Building. And what that could mean could have huge implications for the timing of this mission, causing even further delays, and a program that's been well publicized how behind schedule it is, with all the billions of taxpayer dollars spent, and we still don't have a rocket that's going to the moon. It could delay the whole schedule of the missions in the future. Artemis II is supposed to be 2 years away with a crew of 4 on top circling the moon. Artemis III, which had been postponed already from 2024 to 2025, late 2025 they talk now, was supposed to land the first woman and the next man on the moon. So delaying the first mission even further, and potentially by weeks further, could certainly jeopardize the timing of the second and the third missions. We're not there yet to report any delays like that. Potentially NASA could still launch the SLS for the first time on Monday, but certainly right now, 400,000 people going home disappointed, Lisa.
All right, thank you so much. Weather was not an issue today as we take a live look at our launch credit union port cam at Port Canaveral. Troy Bridges standing by. Troy, now we could potentially be looking at Monday evening, right after 5 o'clock.
You know what that means? Storms. What am I doing? I'm tossing back to, we're going to Bill Nelson right now. Let's go to that live.
Because we're going to stress this and test it and test that heat shield and make sure it's right before we put 4 humans on top of it. So this is part of the space business. I've told you before, you know, it's something I'm accustomed to. On my flight, which was Hoot Gibson and Charlie Bolden's flight way back, we scrubbed 4 times. We were delayed over the better part of a month, but the 5th try was an almost flawless 6-day mission. So this is part of our space program. Be ready for the scrubs.
Space is hard indeed. The question now on everybody's mind is going to be, when will we have another launch attempt? Any thoughts on that?
Well, the mission management team is meeting this afternoon. They're going to look at it. They're going to see, is there still a possibility now, or are they going to have to roll back into the vehicle assembly building? If they decide that's the case, then it'll be an October launch. And October, I would say, although the window opens in early, I suspect it'll be more like the middle. Because remember, the first week of October, we've got another crew. It's an international crew, 2 international participants on the crew of 4 that are going to the International Space Station.
That's right. SpaceX's Crew 5, NASA and SpaceX's Crew 5 mission scheduled for early October. You mentioned the MMT, of course, the mission management team. They're going to meet this afternoon, and then hopefully we'll have a press conference after that. I've been watching this launch team for the past 2 weeks now, and just impressed at how focused and how hard they work. Any thoughts you want to share with them about the effort they put in so far?
I'm very proud of the launch team. They do it right. They do it by the book. They do it very professionally. And that's why we have had this extraordinary success that we've had over the years. Sometimes we make mistakes, but we try to minimize those because these are human being lives on the top of that rocket. And I can tell you, when you strap into that rocket, you are very grateful that you've got a launch team like this that knows what they're doing, and they're not going to let you go until it's time.
And you know firsthand the power of those RS-25s and those 2 solid rocket boosters from your flight. Really quickly, before we let you go, you were over there at our VIP area as well. Had some special guests. You were telling me an interesting story about a guest you had there.
There was a young man before he was 7 years old. He wanted very much to be an astronomer. And he signed a document with other children that is on Artemis. And the reason that's so important, that young man named Gaskin died from brain cancer. His family is a special guest of NASA here today. Today he would have been 13 years old. And so we particularly recognize the family in front of all of our international and American guests today.
What an honor for that family to have them there. All right, that'll do it for us. Thank you, Administrator Bill Nelson. Appreciate you being here.
All right, we do want to check back in now with Eric Von Enken, who is standing by at the Kennedy Space Center. Eric, you just heard from the NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, potentially Monday, but if they have to send the rocket back into the vehicle assembly building, we're looking at mid-October before this could potentially launch.
Right, Lisa. And so the talk out here right now is it going to be Monday afternoon, or does it make sense for them to take a little bit of extra time? Remember, like they did after Monday's launch attempt, get out to the pad, open up the bottom of the rocket, the things that they could get to, do some tightening, do some checking, do some testing, take the extra time and waiting until this launch window. Because remember, we could have tried to launch again yesterday. Instead, they waited until today. So does it make sense that they would go for Monday if they could, if they want to give it another chance? It probably makes more sense that they're going to try for Tuesday evening again, if this is something that they think is not going to happen again. So again, trying to explain the issue. This was a hydrogen leak. This is something that they've dealt with over and over and over again. Back to the days of the space shuttle. In fact, remember, these are the same engines that were just repurposed from the space shuttle. They use liquid oxygen and they use liquid hydrogen, and they went through a period of time with the space shuttle where they just couldn't figure out the leaks. The same type of hydrogen leaks, just this tiny molecule somehow getting out of all those connections. So this connection point was also an 8-inch quick disconnect, but a different quick disconnect. So the disconnects are the connection points essentially between the hoses where the rocket is connected to the mobile launcher, the infrastructure at the pad. And so what happens is they have seals in there, and of course, as they're fueling, these quick disconnects are connected, and they need the hydrogen to flow from one hose through the connection point to the other side. Well, something in there wasn't totally sealed, and that hydrogen got out. It didn't happen last time. It didn't happen during the wet dress rehearsals. At this connection point, they thought they had fixed those other hydrogen leaks. So where we are today is, like I was saying earlier, what really is the problem here? And is there something that NASA can do about it? Is there something today that they could do out at that launch pad? Could they go out there and start tightening a few nuts again? Possible, but not likely. This is one of those stubborn, pesky problems that you really can't predict. This didn't happen during any of the other rehearsals, at least at this connection point. So like we're saying, what does NASA do about it? Do they just give it another shot on Monday or Tuesday and just hope it goes away? That's possible, because remember, the other leaks went away and they didn't do a whole lot differently. The process this morning, when they first discovered the leak, what they did is they stopped the flow. They allowed that connection point to warm up, because the thinking here is if you allow both sides of the connection point to equalize in temperature, you might be able to reset that seal. They did that once. That didn't work. Second time, they tried to flow helium through that connection point to put some pressure on it. That didn't work. The third time, they actually did the first thing again that they had tried earlier in the morning. They allowed it to warm up, but then they tried to flow the liquid hydrogen, and that didn't work. So is it a possibility that if they just give it another shot, because it didn't leak before, maybe on Monday or Tuesday it won't leak again? It is entirely possible. We're expecting to find out at 4 p.m. this afternoon. That's when NASA's going to hold a press conference and, like we said, give us some answers. They might not even have the answer today. They may want to go out to the pad and look at it first to figure out if this is something that they can address, something they can take a chance with, or something that they got to roll back over there like James Barbera was talking, the vehicle assembly building off to my right. Lisa.
All right, News 6's Eric Von Inken, as always, giving us excellent coverage from Kennedy Space Center today. Thank you. We do want to check back in now with meteorologist Troy Bridges. So, Troy, as we've been saying, Monday evening is a potential. If not, then mid-October. How's the weather looking for mid-October, Troy?
Monday evening we're going to have those storms. By 5 p.m., a real issue. So, as the lady from the Carolinas said, a launch. Do you remember how she said that? I love how she said launch. I don't think we're going to have a launch on the afternoon and evening hours on Monday. But we will be watching for that if we do have some of those showers and storms. They could be an issue right now, though. Not a big issue. We are seeing a few clouds. The heat, the big story for all the folks who are camped out trying to see this. 103 is what it feels like right now at Port Canaveral. The actual temperature, 88 degrees. It's 89 in Orlando, 86 in Ocala. So here is the forecast for today. We will see that sea breeze action come into play around 2 p.m. So for the launch window that was supposed to be at 2:17, we were a little concerned with that chance for rain pushing in. After 3 p.m., that coverage of rain at 50%, and it continues to push inland of the beaches, inland of the launch site. So that would have been the good news. Even though we would see the East Coast sea breeze develop, it would push inland. So likely through the middle and the latter part of that window, 3 p.m. on into 4 p.m., we wouldn't have as much of a problem. But of course, it is scrubbed, but weather would likely not be the issue today, because most of those showers and storms by by 4 p.m. will be inland right along I-4. We'll continue to pinpoint that moving to western zones as late as 9 o'clock tonight. So some storms in Lake Sumter and Marion counties. Early morning temperatures tomorrow in the mid and upper 70s. Here is your 7-day forecast. And Lisa, we're looking good, but then look at Monday, that 50% coverage of rain into the afternoon. Back to you.
All right, Troy, thank you. We were expecting some 400,000 spectators along the Space Coast today, so we do want to check back in with traffic safety expert Trooper Steve with the latest on the roads for us.
Well, I do think the 400,000 are there. However, I think they're holding out a little bit. Some have left a little early. Like we had mentioned earlier, we did give about a 2.5 hour kind of advisory before the launch window opened that it was not going to happen. So I do think a lot of people, like Molly Reed had explained, booked it out of those lawn chairs right to their car. So we are starting to see some mild issues out there. But I'm going to be honest, nothing that we would not see on a Monday morning with me and Troy out here reporting to you. So there are a lot of people still lined up along 528. Why? Because Troy Bridges has given beautiful, beautiful weather. Look at this right here from Sky 6. Sky 6 flying over the beach. It's packed, guys. Beach is packed. People are still hanging out along the coast. I do think this is helping out our roadways a little bit. Now, the Brewer Bridge is still closed. Max Brewer Bridge, all eastbound lanes are closed, hence why it's green, because no one can enter that way. Everyone is still leaving the westbound area to the point where FHP has issued, Florida Highway Patrol has issued a traffic advisory for the city of Titusville. This doesn't happen very often because they're not responsible for the city. However, traffic is pretty backed up and they're issuing to the state, hey, be careful if you happen to be passing through this area along US 1. There have been reports of some very minor crashes, but nothing that's going to slow you down. Far southern portions of Brevard County looking great this morning. Northern portions, if you're coming through the Mims area, pretty clear this morning. For the most part, Lisa, I do think a lot of people are hanging out, enjoying the weather. I know I would. Back to you.
All right, Steve, thank you. And thank you so much for joining us for this special edition of News 6 at noon. We are expecting a 4 o'clock press conference from NASA. We will stream that live for you at clickorlando.com. We leave you now with a live look at Launch Pad 39B at the Kennedy Space Center.